As entrepreneurs, we all have a reason why we chose to leave our 9 to 5 for an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm here to capture those stories of why we all hustle and grind for our companies. Debbie Hart is the founder of Ignition Point. Ignition Point is an innovation and business hub for entrepreneurs. Their vision is to establish access to entrepreneurship. They do so through podcast interviews, live events, online training, and providing resources, and by relentlessly pursuing their mission to help entrepreneurs succeed so they can start and grow companies wherever they are located. Entrepreneurs drive innovation, and in turn, innovation drives our economic development. With intentional and targeted entrepreneurial support, an entire startup's ecosystem can be cultivated in a community, which will in turn drive economic growth and increase prosperity for people of all walks of life. At Ignition Point, they nurture the entrepreneurial spirit and strive to promote diverse industries and promote collaboration. They provide entrepreneurs with a collaborative and inclusive co-working space, mentorship, education, and experiential learning, all while nurturing and developing an entrepreneurial community. Awesome. So, Debbie, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it today. I'm honored to have you here.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for inviting me. I love working with you and I love your business, so I'm happy to collaborate.
Awesome, awesome. So I want to just dive right in here, and all of us have our origin story. All of us have that zone of genius that we do. So let's go to the first one. What, in your words, is your zone of genius? Like where you love operating?
I am a trainer, really by heart. I'm a teacher, I'm a trainer, I'm a public speaker, I'm a coach. So my passion and what I've always been naturally good at is helping other people to achieve their goals and dreams.
Okay.
So specifically, and that can come at a lot of different levels. There is traditional life coaching, there is relationship coaching, and then there's business coaching. And I have many certifications in all three of those, but I just love entrepreneurs, the heart of an entrepreneur, where, the rubber meets the road. Where you find out what you're really made of. I always say entrepreneurship is the world's best personal development program and relationship program anyway.
Voluntarily or involuntarily. Yeah. I
Uh-huh.
did.
Yeah, you better have those skills, my friend.
Or you will get them quickly.
Or you'll learn them by circumstance. That's true, yes.
Which I think sometimes we need to. I mean, so I kind of tend to be stubborn, and sometimes I just need to get kind of hit upside the head by the 2x4 of reality, going, "You need to learn this," and here, good luck with that.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah,
you've had.
we can look at, sometimes we just don't know what we don't know, unconscious incompetence. So we end up learning the hard way. But the more we can choose into that, the more we can compel ourselves into, self-selecting to learn, sharpen the saw, spend that time every day working on ourselves,
Mhm.
personally, as well as our business skills, as well as our relationship skills. I feel like the less amount of time that we have to learn that hard way, being compelled.
Yes, yes, and I think that's one thing that makes entrepreneurs kind of a different breed. And I don't know if you've seen this as well, where we tend to be significantly tougher than most folks, just on a lot of different levels, because we've had to do that. I don't know if you've had the similar experience too, where it's like we've had so many trials, we've had so many things go wrong. There's times when you just sit there and go, that didn't go how I wanted, and we've got to figure it out. I figured you've had a similar experience to that than I have.
I have several of those. That's, what I built my whole brand around. It's called Ignition Point,
Yeah.
and it's that fire, right? It's that fire. Are you going to let that burning moment consume you, or are you going to let it refine you? What are you going to do with that? We all have those moments. But the entrepreneurs or the successful people are the ones that take that fire and let it and choose, like I said, compel themselves to walk through the fire and let it refine them and make them better instead of bitter. Because we all have betrayals, we all have loss, we all have these things that happen. Some people like Dan Martell launched his career after years of being in jail. What and selling drugs, right? He was always an entrepreneur, just the wrong kind, maybe a kind that didn't support humanity for the better, which is what we all hope to do, hopefully. And some people end up staying in that pattern the rest of their lives. So my goal is to help people choose into that path of wanting to forge their own way. Yeah, yeah, it's a pain point often that drives us, like you said. So what is that defining moment where you said, enough is enough, I'm going to forge my own way? I don't, I see a problem that needs solved and no one else is doing it. Like
Mhm.
Jimmy Rex says, we are the they. You can't wait for, like, someone needs to do this. You're the someone. If you see the problem, you are being called to be the solution.
Mhm. Absolutely.
So how are you going to do that? And what are you going to do about it? So that's why I love entrepreneurs, because they are all the people, no matter where they're at on the path, if they're just starting or if they're, decades and 9, 10 figures down the road, they all have that mindset and that drive. And
Mhm.
so that's the world that I love to surround myself in and to support.
Absolutely. So because we all have that moment, that thing that catapulted us into the wonderful world of entrepreneurship. Tell me a little bit about your kind of what was that one moment where you said, I'm probably the black sheep of my family. I don't want to do this anymore. I reject your reality and I substitute my own. Well, tell me about that story behind what was your gateway into entrepreneurship?
Well, those are two questions. So if the first
Yep.
one, knowing that I was different, I was the black sheep, as you put it, or whatever, I was born that way. I was
Mhm.
always doing things different. I was always not wanting to be told what to do if it didn't make sense to me. I
Mhm.
didn't want to follow a rule just because it was a rule. I'm like, tell me why this makes sense for me. And if not, I'm going to go do my own thing, and often did, which is challenging for people around a teenager who's like that. I wasn't selling drugs or in jail, but I certainly didn't understand certain curfews or not being allowed to chew gum, or silly rules to me that were arbitrary, and I would challenge everything that I found arbitrary. But I
Mhm.
didn't know anything about business or entrepreneurship. That was not anywhere accessible in my world.
Yeah.
And so I did, I like to be a super achiever in what I do know. And so I was a stay at home homeschooling mother of six who, every Sunday morning I would sit me and my six children on the front pew, and I would do all of the things that I
Mhm.
did think I was supposed to do to be successful, the things that I thought were all the right things.
Mhm.
But it didn't end so well for me. So all of a sudden, my spouse decided he wanted a different life, and literally within moments, I
Mhm.
had no support system,
Mhm.
no home, and the bank accounts had been emptied out. So we had a few minutes for me and my six children to find somewhere to live, and I had no income, and the bank accounts had been emptied out. And there wasn't even anything I could sell. All the assets had been moved into his name, and even all the debts had been moved into mine, including his school loans had been put on credit cards in my name. And, since I had, you know, only assumed that my main purpose was to be a very good wife and mother and be home with my kids, I had not developed a career. And since I had gotten married right outside of high school, I had not even gone to college, so I had no degree.
Mhm.
And I was going to come someday, when my duty of raising my kids was done, when my youngest was in school, I was going to go to school someday and get a career in psychology.
Mhm.
And someday never came. So with that being the path that was laid before me, the curveball life threw at me. We all have them. I'm not sitting here crying about it. I'm sitting here just telling you this is what I went through. And that's why I became an entrepreneur, because literally, with no degree and no career experience, I could not even get a normal job that would cover daycare expenses for six children, let alone our living expenses. So I had to figure out how to make money in my situation. And since I loved psychology, I did start out with just one little certification to do hypnotherapy. And so I could get that in 4 weekends. And then I helped people quit smoking and, all of those things. And I loved it. And so I saved up and I added the next one. So I got some Tony Robbins certifications in strategic intervention, and then in advanced relationships. And then it eventually developed into business coaching, which is where I found my passion,
Mm.
because those are all the skills that I wish that I had had all along the way. And they do include all of those personal and relational skills, as well as the fundamentals of building a sustainable and scalable and profitable business. Because revenue, for again, revenue is not enough. A lot of entrepreneurs are just like, they just get their product or their service and they're just like, sales, 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 revenue, revenue, revenue. And okay, yeah, awesome, you did 7 figures in revenue last year, but how did you feed your family? What were your profits? So I like to say revenue feeds your ego and profits feed your family. And so the system I use now actually has a proprietary software with 500 million algorithms that deep dives into people's business to show them how to look at becoming more profitable as quickly as possible. In as little as 90 days, we find a lot of business owners an additional $100,000 in profits. So
Mm.
you can feed your family. And a lot of times we'll show people how to when they adjust these areas that we cover, get the same profits as $1 million business with 25% of the revenue. And yeah, you can't brag about that to your network as much, but you have more time freedom and more money for your actual family. So
Mm.
that's what's important to me, and that's why I do what I do. I love to support, I've always loved to support people in reaching their goals and their dreams. And now I just really want to help business owners make sure that they have the resources and tools that they need to grow and to stay in business and to be profitable so they can take care of their families.
Mhm. So one of the things I'd like to go through really quickly with you is that first, so everyone has that transition point, right? And that transition point goes between when you were kind of down and out and doing your thing, and then now you transition to be an entrepreneur. You kind of go from one to the next. What was that transition point for you? I guess to put your terminology to it, what was that one ignition point that said, I'm going forward with this?
Well, I just in that moment I had to. I had
Hmm.
to find a way to make money, and I had no one to watch my kids, so I had to find a way that I could make money from home. But you're right. Before that, I mean, even I would have little side hustles when I was a stay-at-home mom. I launched a children's singing and performing group. I launched a children's theater group. It's things I could do while I was with my kids and not have to leave them to go have a little side hustle and a little bit of spending money.
Yeah.
So really for me, it's all about freedom to spend my time
Hmm.
how I want to.
Yeah. Lifestyle by design is how I've heard it put. And a mentor of mine used to say that, I'm building a lifestyle by design. I'm intentionally like we talked about earlier on in the podcast, or early on before we went on today, that the hustle and grind doesn't always mean just grind, grind, grind yourself into the ground. It sometimes means I have such a passion for doing something that it's, I can kind of go above and beyond doing it. But that doesn't necessarily mean I'm working 1,000 hours a week. And I guess that's part of the dichotomy here is that you know, there's a different way to do it. And I think for you, you really want to show people there's a different way to do it. Like you said, it's not about the revenue. It's not always about revenue, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, sometimes, people aren't bringing anything home, or sometimes they're in
Yeah.
the red, even though the revenue shows impressive numbers. And it's not sustainable. You can't be working, yes, we are ready, willing, and able because entrepreneurs are so passionate about whatever their reason is, whether it is the product or service itself, or the drive to control your time, or the drive to remove the income glass ceiling that you would have working for someone else. Whatever your why is, it does drive us to work a lot longer and harder, often for a lot less pay when we're starting for the first
Mhm.
couple of years, right?
Yep.
But that's not sustainable forever. You can't work those kind of hours
Yep.
and not be making money, especially if you are a single parent.
Mhm.
So not all entrepreneurs are. Some of them have partners, or some of them don't have kids. And
Mhm.
then, and they're willing to sleep on couches and eat ramen noodles for however long it takes. But even that, I'm telling you, that is not sustainable. If you
Yeah.
don't have healthy food, you're
Yeah.
going to have medical bills that are going to stop you from growing your business. So
Mhm.
you do need to be making profits that you take home to build a lifestyle that you enjoy, even though you love and enjoy your business. We all do. Like I would be, I'm a workaholic. I would say like a 24/7. It's like a lifestyle, right? And I love it. And
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't have it any other way. I choose it. But my lifestyle beyond that has to also be supported. So my kids can do choir and soccer and go on their trips. We had to give all of that up for
Mhm.
a couple of years. My kids had nothing. We had nothing. We bounced around in people's basements. We ate out of churches, storehouses, and welfare, and they couldn't do any activities until they got jobs and paid for it themselves,
Yeah.
which was a good thing.
Mhm.
But when they're too young to pay for a job, under 15, kids should still have access to activities. And so I needed to find a way that I could earn enough that I could do that for them. And selling at cost or whatnot, it's not going to be the way. You have to figure out how to be profitable and make money so that we want these businesses to stay alive and thrive.
Yeah. Now, I guess you had a really unique situation where single mother, living on people's couches, a rather difficult kind of beginning to it, kind of a difficult transition phase. So the thing with these difficult problems, and I think as entrepreneurs, we understand these problems and we understand how to get beyond them. And I think that's a level of wisdom that we really can share with others. And so I guess I'd ask for you, if you had somebody who is in that space as well, who is in a similar situation, and you had to sit her down and give her as much advice or whatever advice you could, what specific like action items, what things would you say, encouragement, whatever that happens to be, what would you say to that person?
As tough as it is, it does start with mindset. That's that ignition point, is the choice every second when you're down in the gutter to get better instead of bitter, because it's so painful and it's so easy to be, you're justified to be mad and angry, and your excuses are valid, but also they don't get you anywhere. They
Mhm.
don't get you somewhere better anyway. They keep you stuck. And so as you're ready, willing, and able to take steps towards something else, there's always a way. There's free resources all over the place. So I have them on my website as well because of that. I have every level. I have 15 free trainings and 3 free books on my website that, have profitability strategies and
Mhm.
starting a business strategies. So podcasts, YouTube University. There's so many resources that are free to get started, to get your mind, because whatever we focus on expands. So we focus on, I recently coached a real estate agent who was getting stuck in a custody and child support battle, and it was draining her. She was sad and frustrated all the time, and she felt like it was consuming her. And I asked her, I'm like, what are the numbers? It's like $400 a month is what you're battling over. I'm like, just time chunk that. Like, you do have to deal with these things. There's
Mhm.
logistics and mechanics to getting out of these kind of situations, and you do have to deal with that. But she was letting the emotions of it consume her 24/7, which stopped her from building her business, all for a few $100s a month. I'm like, if you did just one deal in 2 months, you would 100x that amount. So let's schedule time every Thursday from 2 to 4 is where you go over the paperwork and you call the lawyer and you do the things, however much time you need. We're going to schedule that. And the rest of the time, you're not even going to think about it. You are going to grow and build. And, by the next week, she had 2 deals in her pipeline.
Mhm.
And she's like, just knowing like that, yeah, like, let's look at this like a math problem to deal with and not like give it all of the power to destroy your life. So And that's hard to hear because I mean, like it's tough when you're in that. It's really tough to deal with that, but there are ways. So mindset is definitely first and foremost, but it is not the only thing because no amount of sitting in a garden chanting there are no weeds are going to make the weeds disappear, right? We've got to then be taking action, and we've got to be taking right action because also no amount of running west chasing a sunrise is going to get us there. So
Mhm.
these are, there's progressive steps. Work on your mindset first, decide that you're going to take action, start taking the action, time chunk the things so like you're watching and doing the inner work of the emotions, and then find someone who's done what you want to do. What are you passionate about? Are you passionate about cosmetology? Okay, go figure out how to get a scholarship or how to save up or start mentoring under or training under someone who can mentor you how to get there. Find, start networking. Networking is the fastest way to open up opportunities and doors. If they can see that you're willing to show up and do the work, people
Mhm.
will open doors for you.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that a lot of people overlook when they're entrepreneurs or when they first start out is that ability to kind of um, to collaborate with someone who is farther along than you are, give them value. And now you've created kind of the circular value proposition. And it doesn't cost really anything. You don't really, you need to bring some value, but there doesn't really have to be any specific skill set. It's just, let's go do this. And let's, here, I'll help you up. I'll help prop you up when you do this. And then it comes back as well, because that's how things are kind of flow as far as the universe. Yeah.
I love that you bring that up. That's the biggest point I talk to people about when they're networking. You better bring value first,
Yes.
especially if they are at, 10 steps ahead of you. And it has got to be more than a cup of coffee or a lunch. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you have a multimillionaire that you want to network with, it is costing them money to
Yes.
have lunch with you. And they are saying no to growing their business or time with their family. They don't owe you anything. So
Mm-hmm.
you do need to figure out what you can do to provide actual resources and tools and value or referrals or something that is valuable and appreciated by them
Mm-hmm.
for them to give you their time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's got to be an equal value proposition, or there's got to be some sort of value proposition. Absolutely.
Hmm.
And I have to say
Yeah, I
that
think that's something people forget. I see them asking for, coffees or lunch dates with people out of their level of network all of the time
yeah.
without something to offer. I'm like, that's people don't owe you their time. And in fact, you're costing them
Yeah.
time away from their family and time away from their business. And they can't, there's probably 300 people that want that. So
Mhm.
that's, I think, one of the biggest pain points I see with people at that level trying to get up to the next level. People do want to help you, and no one is self-made. We
Mhm.
had tons of help along the way.
Mhm.
But also, a lot of people get jaded with helping because there's enabling and there's takers. And
Mhm.
so don't be a taker. Even if
Yeah.
you need support to get out of the gutter and rise, don't be
Mhm.
a taker. Find a way to still be a go giver first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that gives us another level of power, or gives people a level of power being able to know how to balance that value proposition. I think it really helps people a lot. So I love that you said that, because it's something that we see. I mean, we see it often during our networking or during events and various things. We see it often, and it's sort of you sit there and you sort of just kind of shake your head and nod. It's like, oh man, but because you see what's happening and you want to, you may want to say something to them, or you may have this, thing, but it's difficult to get over. I mean, it's difficult, I think, for a person in that mindset. There, you understand that it's not just only about not creating a equal value proposition, but it's also about there's a critical there are some critical things they haven't learned about how the universe works. So it's a lack mentality, I think. So it's like, oh, I don't have anything, so now I lack it. I now, it's a lack mentality that's not really going to get them very far. And I think that's something that I see in folks that have that mentality. Yeah, they're it's always there's not enough. There's not, I don't have enough to give. I don't have enough to do this. And there's a lot more power involved. They have a lot more power than they think they do. So just something I've observed with folks that do that. So,
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I love to share those stories. Everyone that we have on our podcast is, quote unquote, self-made.
mhm,
And so that, it's to inspire people who, think, oh my gosh, Dan Young and PC laptops, and that's so amazing. I could never be like him. So we tell the story of how he started.
mhm,
And, like he used to work at Radio Shack. He wasn't
mhm.
born into a PC laptops empire and then suddenly took it over from his daddy.
Yes.
He started it himself because he had an idea. When Radio Shack shut down, he thought, you know what, I'll call these people and I'll personally warranty their computers that they bought from Radio Shack at a huge cost to him. He lost 25,000 his first year in business in
Mm,
the 80s.
mm,
That's a lot. But
yeah,
he had a dream and he had a vision and he pursued it and now he's wildly successful. But he didn't start out that way, So yeah, everyone has it within them to rise to more, but again, it's what you focus on and then it's the steps that you take to get there.
yeah. And I think, yeah, yeah. I am going to keep in the back of my head and I'm going to try that this summer and see if, I can possibly prove that wrong sitting in my garden and just hoping that the weeds go away. I don't know. That's a great visual.
I got that from Tony Robbins, so
But I do love the visual.
I
And I think
know it's great. It's like there are no weeds, there are no weeds. And maybe some Zen Buddha master monk in the Himalayas has that ability. I don't know, but I know I don't. I'm not there yet, so it takes
yeah,
action.
maybe
Faith
goals.
is not a religious term.
Yeah.
Faith is that principle. It's a success principle, but it is both. Faith is not just belief in the unseen, but it is a principle of action. So
Mhm,
I have faith that the grocery store has that gallon of milk that I want. So I
mhm,
believe that it's there and I get in my car to drive there to
mhm.
go get the milk. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? So like faith in manifesting, if you will, is
Mhm.
that is a twofold process. It is belief and action on that belief.
It's so I saw a magnet in a supermarket a while ago. It was one of those things that pops into your mind exactly when you need to see it. And it said, proceed as if success is inevitable. And I think that's what we're talking about with faith. It's that sometimes it's just like, I have the faith this is going to work. I have no idea how the hell it's going to work, but I know it's going to work and I'm going to move forward with that faith. And I think that's something that with entrepreneurs, and this is why I love working with entrepreneurs, is we have that sort of gumption, just it's going to work. I have no
I
idea
don't
what I'm going
know
to
how,
do.
but it will.
No
Yeah.
idea. I'm going to make
Yeah.
it go right. Yeah.
And that's the other gap that I find though, because I totally believe that. I'm like, that's one of my mottos. I'm like, I get an idea, I'll make it happen. I don't know how, but I'll make it happen. But then also realizing no amount of running east, or west, chasing a sunrise is going to get you there. So find like people, tools, books, podcasts, if you can't afford a coach or a mentor or a program, find correct principles that are proven to get you there. That's the
Mhm.
fastest way. Rather than just trying to wing there. You do have to figure, like, entrepreneurs are building something from scratch that's never been done before, so there is a lot of making it up and figuring out as you go. But if you
Mhm.
have a board of advisors, or there are plenty of books out there like the E-Myth or the Lean Startup or Scale or Fail that have proven systems for startups, for checkpoints and milestones to make sure that you're going to make it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think it's something that I found kind of in my career where your network is your net worth. And there's many, many layers to what that means. Is that there's people out there who are willing to help, they're willing to go forward, they're willing to, to help you do it, provided there's some value proposition involved. But these are people that the resources are out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's
Yep.
building those resources, building the relationships around those resources, and actual relationships, around those resources. And that really helps.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Just start with
absolutely.
networking. Just
Yeah,
start with
exactly.
that.
Because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know what's going to happen. And and it's just a lot of fun. I mean, I love networking. It's one of my favorite parts of my job. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really, really appreciate it. You've dropped some amazing pearls of wisdom here, and I really, really appreciate you a lot. Awesome.
I appreciate you too. Thank you for inviting me. It's always fun for me. And also, I'll just give you a shout out. I have personally worked with Andrew for my events, and we're going to be using him again because he is amazing, efficient, professional. He made everything run smoother than any other events that I've done. So work with Andrew also, enjoy his podcast, but also work with him if you do events or want to develop your keynote. He is extremely talented.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. Thanks again for joining us on the Hustle and Grind podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Debbie and Ignition Point, check out the links in the description.